In this video, we're going to get a laptop hooked up via PCMCIA card to a token ring network. Token ring networks were a competitor to Ethernet, and they use an interesting ring topology. We'll do a walkthrough of what these PCMCIA cards are all about, do a little hard drive repair work on an IBM ThinkPad T23, and finally try to get it networked up with a Windows 95 machine over Token Ring. We'll also get an IBM 8228 Token Ring MAU fixed up, a networking device similar to a hub, with the elusive IBM Setup Aid tool. Let's get into it. I like two things in this world: stacking identical pieces of computing equipment and PCMCIA cards. These PC cards plug into a laptop just like this one to provide modularity. We will be going over a ton of these things in excruciating detail shortly, so don't worry. But today we're going to mainly concern ourselves with these Token Ring and network interface cards. As a refresher, Token Ring was a competitor to Ethernet back in the mid-1980s into the 1990s, and as you can see, the connectors are very interesting looking. These are called IBM data connectors or IBM Type 1 connectors, and IBM promised that this would be the connector of the future. But one problem in that future-proofing department was they only have 4 wires running through them. And this large monster they connect into is called a MAU, or Media Access Unit. You can think of this like a hub. Token Ring uses a ring topology, meaning every node or computer, ring station on the ring network is actually connected in a circle, and a special packet called a token passes around each machine. And this MAU here is one of the devices responsible for actually establishing a ring between each item you're connecting up. In typical installations, I believe, the large data connectors here would plug in on the MAU side, but typically on your workstation you'd be using RJ45 just with 4 wires in there, or cables with these D-sub connectors, again, just 4 wires. And IBM was pretty serious about these cables. This RJ45 variant here is clearly some aftermarket. It's not IBM branded, and it's pretty chintzy and thin and nothing to write home about. But when you find one of the IBM branded cables, especially the D-sub connector ones, they're really thick cabling, super hefty. They've stood up to the test of time. This end isn't as kind of strong as you would think it would be. However, the D-sub connector is always super hefty, totally molded. If you ever come in contact with one of these, you'll know what I mean. They're pretty substantial. And as we connect more and more machines into this MAU, and this is only a 16-port MAU, imagine like a networking closet for a multi-story building. It would have been just an absolute sight seeing all this gear racked up and hooked up. And luckily, we can get a glimpse into the past. A viewer sent in these pictures of a massive Token Ring setup still standing today at a Molson Coors brewery in the UK, unused for over 25 years. Let's just revel in this site for a moment and notice that a lot of the cables angle downwards. Some of the cables are just straight across like this, so when you plug them in, the cable really wants to come off the MAU quite a bit, and I don't think that would have been desirable, someone coming along and putting pressure on the cables. And from a management perspective, you can see I've got a few of these angled ones here, and that just comes out way cleaner. I think the cables are safer and you can route them better. I'm imagining that's why they did that. Just look at that. I'm actually borrowing a bunch of these really nice IBM branded angle connector cables from someone local. He lent me a ton of interesting Token Ring stuff, which we'll be using later in this video. And then a viewer named Chad actually sent in some interesting adapters. Mailed them in a box in this pretty interesting anti-static bag. I never thought an anti-static bag would be a collectible. You can see it says Maj, I think. Maj Networks was a huge producer of Token Ring cards and gear. In fact, in that Coors brewery picture, you could see they were clearly a Maj shop. But I guess the story is one of these cards was broken and they had a service contract with IBM over in Maine, a state in the United States. And eventually this ended up in an IBM facility, I guess, to get repaired or whatever. So kind of a cool piece of history. And in there was a Type 1 data connector adapter to RJ45, and it's also angled. So you'd have it in the MAU, and you could also angle your RJ45 cables down. So that was probably pretty common as well. But I think you get the idea. That's a Token Ring refresher course for you. We will revisit this setup later in the video. Let's talk about PC cards. These are PCMCIA cards. They can be plugged into computers, typically laptops, to provide additional modular functionality. They're also called PC cards for obvious reasons. PCMCIA, being a complete mouthful, stands for Personal Computer Memory Card International Association, the group of companies that help to define the standard itself. These two happen to be Token Ring Network Interface cards, but the sky was the limit. I've just pulled a random assortment from my collection here. You can kind of think about these PC cards as like USB before USB existed. From a consumer standpoint, it's a totally different technology. But if I'm just a PC user and I need something, these days, I plug in a USB port. Well, back then, especially on laptops, you'd be plugging in these PC cards. This is a wireless B Wi-Fi card. This is a 10100 Ethernet jack. A big deal back in the day would have been modems. This is a 56K modem. We got another modem here, compact branded. And of course, the Token Ring network cards I was showing you. Here's a 10 megabit Ethernet NIC PC card. These PC cards are works of art. This is just a 56K data fax modem from IBM. Look how good it looks, aesthetically, visually. Not to mention this wild-ass holographic Token Ring card I was showing you earlier. I don't know what it is about PC cards specifically, but they're clearly from an era where these hardware companies really gave a crap about what their stuff looked like. They're just absolute works of art. And it's true about pretty much every era of PC card, though especially these are some older variants here. You can tell because this is a 14.4K modem and this is from TDK. They're not exactly pumping out USB hubs, but just look how beautiful these cards are. And of course, they have jewel cases. So this one slots right in there. There were tons of different variants of these types of cards. Typically, they'd be thin like this, and they'll have a dongle on the end. We'll talk about that. That's the downfall of these things. But some manufacturers decided to put like the whole connector on there, so this thing's sitting off your laptop, and you can plug an Ethernet cable into it. This is a D-Link 10100 Ethernet NIC. So of course, you need the jewel case with the bigger, section for that. They're just I love these things. They're just so ridiculous. I was alluding to a dongle issue earlier. Basically, the typical approach by the manufacturers of these PC cards was to have a edge connector here that you would plug a dongle into to actually get what you want. So this happens to be a Token Ring network adapter, and it needs this special cable. I don't know about you, but that doesn't look like a standard cable. Maybe it is, I didn't look it up, but I'll tell you what, none of these other PC cards I've got are using whatever the hell this is. The best part is Token Ring requires 4 wires right here. So what are these doing? But anyway, the typical approach would be you'd have this special dongle cable thing, and this one's real fancy. It locks in. That's actually pretty nice, except imagine this is sitting in your laptop and like your dog comes by and just like crunch. You gotta unlock this one. The point is they're all different. This is a 56K modem called a gold card from Dacom, I'm not sure. Gold card global, baby. And it uses a totally different connector style. Forget about drivers or whatever, which is another hurdle. I literally physically don't have the cable for this. I'll never be able to use it. It's a showpiece. That excellent TDK card I was showing you earlier. Let's compare these. And yeah, no surprise, totally different. I will very likely never be able to use this one as well. For some reason, this is like the favorite looking one I have. I think it's very impressive. From a collecting standpoint and actually being able to, rediscover and use these things in the modern era, that's the biggest issue, is if they have a special dongle there, and a lot of the time on eBay, they won't come with the cable, or the one that comes with the cable is at $80 more or whatever. Of course, that's not an issue for Wi-Fi, but Wi-Fi is not very fun. The saving grace is if you find one that says X-Jack. This is a 56K modem, and what an X-Jack is the built-in connector. So you would plug your phone line in right there. No dongle required. And they kind of took it to the limit, as it were. This is a 10 megabit LAN card. Also says X-Jack, registered trademark, apparently. I wonder who owns that. Yeah, that's a full-blown Ethernet jack. And if you thought that other dongle was going to ruin your laptop, man, imagine that, just like wrenching on that How many of these just got absolutely destroyed by like someone walking by at the airport? Ridiculous. But from a collecting standpoint, that's the way to go. Find the X-Jack ones if you really want to get into this stuff, because you don't need a dongle, because it can't stop talking. Here's a fast Etherlink 10100 base TX NIC, and it's got the most ridiculous dongle you'll ever see. This thing is not usable without this 3-com dongle. It's got the BNC for 10 base T. Like, gotta love it, but also kind of annoying. Like, what if I didn't have this? Now, of course, some manufacturers either went all out or got clever. I was showing you this D-Link Ethernet NIC here, and it just hangs off the side of the laptop, and you can plug your Ethernet cable in like that. But then there's oddballs like this Zircom. She's a double height. They went all in more ways than I can explain. That's the Ethernet NIC, and this is a modem. Line in, line out, I guess. And this is some other, they still managed to incorporate a special, like, proprietary dongle, which is impressive, given all the effort this took. It was very common for laptops to come with 2 PC card slots, though it wasn't necessarily guaranteed. So you would have needed that in this case. It slides in there nicely, takes up both of your slots, but pretty slick regardless. Another oddity of PCMCIA is that it became such an affordable way to include functionality in a standardized modular fashion that it showed up in more than just some cards to slot in your laptop. This is some sort of mystery board for a Sun Microsystems enterprise server, a Sunfire, or maybe one of their older enterprise servers. And it's got a 3-com GSM and cellular modem PC card. I think somehow this thing can connect to like old cellular networks. And you can see they just put the PCMCIA slot right here. Here's the stupid dongle going right into a phone jack on the card. Like, absolutely ridiculous. Again, I got this on eBay and I have done no research about what it is or how to use it, but I'll tell you one thing. This was not entirely clear in the eBay listing, so I'm gonna have to pull this battery and give this thing a vinegar bath. I kind of picked this up not expecting to ever be able to use it anyway, but that's not a good sign. The point is, there was a lot of weird stuff like this going on. In fact, I've got an old video where I rip apart one of these classic Linksys routers, and sure enough, inside, some of them have the wireless PCMCIA cards. But I digress. Hopefully now you at least understand why it's even interesting to use these PC cards in the first place, let alone hooking them up to a token ring network. Can you imagine if there was a dongle to get these things onto the IBM Type 1 Classic Token Ring connector? But of course, this is the actual setup. You have the dongle I was showing you earlier with way too many connectors, and it goes over to RJ45. In fact, this much older, I believe, card right here, and this PC card token ring adapter use the same connector here over to RJ45, and you would of course convert it over to IBM Type 1 connector if you needed to, and that's what we need to do today. I have no reason to believe these don't work, though I haven't tested them, but very exciting is I've got a complete in-box version of this one. MX Shift over on the Serial Port Discord. You get access to that Serial Port Discord if you subscribe to my $5 and up Patreon, by the way. Oh, I also hang out there as well. Sent this my way, which was super nice of them, so a huge thanks to them. And it is a complete in-box IBM PCMCIA token ring adapter. We got the IBM Works on Your PC 30-day money-back guarantee. We're going to test that. I can only assume it came from Canada. We've got English and French here. And IBM loves to rename things and have different marketing campaigns. And apparently this thing came from Options by IBM back in 1993. Before we unbox this thing, let's talk about what we're going to put it in. By far, the most era-appropriate machine I have is this IBM ThinkPad 380ED. It's got an Intel Pentium MMX inside. This was essentially donated by Free Geek Twin Cities over in Minnesota. So a huge thanks to them. And as far as I can tell, it's fully functional, but I cannot get this damn thing to boot. I was trying to install Windows 95 in a previous video. This is the OEM IBM hard drive. It works fine. They sent it to me in working condition. It had FreeDOS on it. I could boot to that. Super bizarre behavior. I will link my previous Token Ring video down below if you really want to know what this thing's all about. So we're gonna forget about this one, unfortunately. And it just so happens that a patron of mine sent me this IBM ThinkPad. I'm still waiting to see if I have permission to give them a proper shout out. In a huge pile of gear they sent me. This came in a big box with a Sun Microsystems Sunfire server, and the lady at the post office was not so impressed with me. So this guy was sitting in there. It is a ThinkPad T23, and it's got a Pentium 3. That is much more my era. P2, P3, and up is more my wheelhouse. So I'm very happy to own this machine. It's got the Windows XP badge right here. At one point in its life, it was running Windows 2000. That might have been how this one shipped. It's got the IBM OEM right there. And this particular unit has copyright codes as late as 2001. But this particular unit came out early enough to maybe have been shipping with Windows 98. So we're going to try to get Windows 98 SE on here. I don't really like to pick up laptops. They're hard to work on, though my collection seems to keep growing. But my one requirement is that they have PC card slots. I'm just making stuff up. I don't know why I said it's a requirement for the PC card slot. I literally last weekend drove an hour and a half to buy these from a guy that's local. These are 386 laptops well before the PC card standard came out. I don't know if they're ever going to be on the Token Ring, but maybe we'll dial up with them or something. They both have a modem. And believe it or not, they both work. So the idea here is we're going to get Windows 98 SE installed on this guy, and then we're going to try to get it on the Token Ring. This thing works, has a good hard drive, so we'll revisit this shortly. But Windows 98 might be a tall order for this IBM PC card Token Ring adapter. Let's take a look on the back and see what it's compatible with to give you an idea of the era we're dealing with here. It is compatible with a whole lot of stuff, but the newest version of Windows is Microsoft Windows for Workgroups version 3.1, which shows you just what we're dealing with here. Windows 95 did not exist when this thing came out, but I have been wanting to set up a Windows 98 laptop, and I think that one is going to be a good candidate. So this thing is, of course, not new in box, meaning it's been used before. But I think that makes it all the more interesting because Token Ring wasn't something you were using like in your home network. So some sort of business professional with their laptop would have been using this thing to get on a Token Ring network, which is a very enterprisey type network to have. Looks like we've got a pretty nice, substantial brown box inside the shell here, and right away we can see the floppy disks. We've got IBM Token Ring credit card adapters. They used to call these PCMCIA or PC cards credit card adapters because they're about the size of a credit card. So we've got Disk 1 LAN-Aid 2.21, copyright 1996, interesting. And then Disk 2 device drivers, Disk 3 LAN client part 1, Disk 4 LAN client part 2, and LAN client part 3 on the 5th IBM disk. And then we've got, I guess, the PC card itself. Yeah, look at that. It's just like my other one, except nicer. And I was just saying this had been used, but maybe this was opened and not actually ever used because this is looking pretty pristine. Here's my other one. I don't know if you can tell, but it's been in and out of a few machines. Also, they're a little different. It's hard to show you with the ridiculous artwork IBM put on there, but this one says Turbo 16.4 and this one just says Token Ring Auto 16.4 credit card adapter. This one says Token Ring PC card. So they're a little different, but I don't think this one has been used a whole lot. Full disclosure, I glanced at this stuff when I was first sent this by MX Shift, but I have not gone any deeper. And this is all looking pretty new, pretty untouched. Wow, look at that. So here's another one of those yeah, I don't think, maybe this was never used. Here's the dongle cable, probably identical to the one I have, the one I got on eBay. We'll open that in a second. And then the adapter from RJ45 to the IBM Type 1. And we've got some documentation here, the adapter support information, and just reams of documentation, license agreements. Wow, look at all this stuff you used to get. Amazing. Yeah, it's all feeling very untouched, perhaps. This is a bunch of like license information. No one cares about that. And then we've got the Token Ring credit card adapter installation instructions, options by IBM. And this is all English, so these are in several languages, but this one is pretty thick and it is like all encompassing. All right, this is great. I would like to think these are totally archived already, but if they aren't, I will image them and get them on the archive, archive.org, and they might come in handy. There's a possibility we're just gonna slap this in and Windows 98 will understand entirely what to do with it. But if not, I think we have what we need here with all the driver disks. Let's get Windows 98 installed on this thing. The nice thing about Windows 98 is it doesn't require a boot floppy, or there are versions of the CD-ROM that you can boot from. And this thing doesn't even have a floppy drive anyway, so we're gonna have to be clever if we need to get those Token Ring drivers over here. This is a Windows 98 SE disk that I burnt over 20 years ago, and it still worked. Well, famous last words, I've got backups, but we're gonna try to use it again today. I haven't used it in a long time. But yeah, I burnt this back in like junior high or something. I'm sure completely legal. This thing did not come with a power supply, but the power supply from that other IBM ThinkPad, the chunkier one that I was showing you, works just fine. So let's power this up. It's got a dead CMOS battery, of course, so it jumps right to the BIOS setup. A mobile Intel Pentium 3 processor M, which is pretty sweet. 256 megs of RAM, so this will be a really nice Windows 98 machine. It thinks it's 2002. Good enough for me. Save and exit. Probably gonna have to do this every time. The CD-ROM sounds terrible. I really hope it works. Oh my god, get over it. Computers love the time and date. Apparently it thinks it's 1988. I don't know where that 2002 was coming from. I'm from 1988 as well. Let's set this to, I don't know, 2006. I'm just making this up. Save and exit again and see if we can get it to boot. Someone installed Debian 11 on this poor soul, and it boots. It really is rough on the hard drive and the 256 megs of RAM. There we go, grub. Here it goes, booting into Debian 11. I think it's a testament both to the Debian codebase and this machine that this works at all. The hard drive is working. I've always found this Linux boot screen very relaxing. It's like, the computer's gonna work. Everything's gonna be fine. Not much else to say. It boots. And if you've ever wondered why people are so enamored to this day with the red eraser pointing stick nub, no trackpad. It's all we had, and we loved it. I am excited to revisit my old friend Windows 98. So I'm gonna get this in here. Again, this drive sounds really bad, so we'll see. I'm gonna restart the machine. Probably need to worry about the boot order. There we go. This is really nice. So I had F12 for temporary boot device, and I can choose the CD-ROM and just boot right from that, hopefully. This might not be a bootable CD-ROM. Oh, but it is. Boot from CD-ROM. Let's go. Yes, we will start Windows 98 setup from the CD-ROM. I am so much more comfortable with Windows 98 era machines and the setup flow because I did it a million times when I was a kid. It's just like, it feels like I'm at home. Well, you can find a million examples of how to do this online. So I'm going to erase the whole disk, and I am going to enable large disk. I don't know how big that disk is actually, but it's probably a gig or something like that. I'm going to get Windows 98 installed, and I'll be back. Oh good, setup cannot install Windows 98 on your computer. An error was detected while formatting. Perfect. And you have no option but to quit. I think we can like manually format it. I'm going to do a little research. Errors with my hard disk. It's probably really confused because Debian 11 is using a file system that this thing has. Never heard of, hasn't been invented yet, perhaps. We're going to do what you always had to do back in the day. Throw in a copy of gparted and format that hard drive to give Windows a head start. If you haven't used gparted, it is the best. I've been using it for what feels like forever. It is a Linux live CD dedicated to formatting hard drives, essentially. Well, except this one is kernel panicking. So I'm going to find an older version. It's saying I can pass an init option. I don't want to deal with that. I'm going to try to find an older disk. Downloaded and burnt a version from 2008. I have one CDR left. If this doesn't work, we might lose the shop. Unknown file system grub rescue. Okay. New plan. Ubuntu 4 live CD. See if this gets us anywhere. Laptops are so dumb. Why do I even bother? But if we do an F disk, we can see there is a 30 gig disk at dev HTA. I'm going to format this as NTFS, I think, to give Windows a chance. I'm going to look up how to do that. I'm going to try make file system type NTFS on that device. Oh, good. Here's an Ubuntu 5.10 live CD. At this point, I could have just dug into this thing and ripped the hard drive out, but here we are, and yeah, it sees the unknown file system, 30 gigs, and it came with gparted. So we've come full circle in a way. So let's delete. This is what I was trying to do in the first place with gparted. So we're going to make a brand new file system, and this one does support NTFS. Add that. So it's formatted that drive. Everything is good. Hopefully Windows 98 likes that. Bet everyone was screaming at me. Windows 98 doesn't support NTFS. That was Windows XP. What am I doing? I'm going to do all that over again. Did that again, but formatted with FAT32, and we're here. I don't really know why Windows couldn't handle that. I might have been doing something wrong anyway. Hopefully this works. Didn't work. We're going to pull the hard drive. Looks like it might be one of those easy ones, and someone has already beaten me to it here. I think you gotta have the screen open, and then might be able to just pry it up, I guess. Yep, there's the hard drive. This thing smells bad. Smells like burnt. Anyway, I think it's the original one, the IBM Travel Star 30 gig. Let's see what we can do about this. I've been fascinated by this abomination lately. It's a replacement case for these, and you put like a NVMe drive in there. Let's try it out. The thing about a token ring network is you have to do a bunch of other crap to get your machines working first before you can even get them on the ring. Can't really blame this drive. If the drive is even at fault, I might be doing something wrong. It was super weird. Windows would complain that it doesn't have an MS-DOS partition right after I partitioned it, and then whenever I went back into gparted to have a look at it, it would claim that the partition type was unknown. So I'm not sure what's going on with that. I mean, the answer is I'm probably doing something wrong, but let's try this out. This is definitely the original. It's like still glued in there. I think it's the glue that smells weird, actually. It's like heating up and getting kind of nasty smelling. I just think this is like a really funny way to revive an old laptop. They work insofar as like my modern PC can see the drive and everything when I put it in a little IDE converter, but I have yet to use them in a real vintage laptop. I'm not holding my breath on this one, but looks like it's going to fit back in there relatively well. Yeah, I had to take the original plate off to get it in, but I think it's in there. Let's try it out. Not going to work. I mean, Is anyone surprised? One more trick up my sleeve though. Here's the original hard drive plugged into my Windows 11 PC with this little adapter thing. And Windows saw it just fine, so I'm doing another format via Windows. We'll see where we get. There have been some very interesting developments. You can see we're further along in the Windows 98 install process. It took over 30 minutes for that old hard drive to format. Here it is. I didn't even try it. I realized I should probably format this thing first. So I popped that in the Windows 11 machine, formatted that in 3 seconds. This is what they look like, by the way. Got a few of these on the hopes that they might work. And the Windows 98 installer seems relatively happy. So hopefully this works. And it's great that that's, solid state. It's going to be just, I mean, look how fast this thing's cruising. It's going to be super, super nice to have a modern hard drive option in there. What do we call this thing? I'm always very clever. T23 Collab Retro Workgroup. I don't even want to say it. I think this is going to be fine. It's cruising. We had a bad hard drive the whole time, and it makes like rattle sounds. It does work, like Windows 11's happy with it, but something's up with this thing. I suppose it is 23 years old at this point. I think we're cruising. I will be back. I was starting to feel like I was going crazy. Couldn't even install dang old Windows 98. But we're in. This is the first boot up here. Hopefully it's got drivers that are going to improve how crappy everything looks. We'll see about that. Found a couple video display driver options. This is a USB stick. I thought the whole point was that Windows 98 came with USB support. I mean, I guess I'll let it search the Windows 98. Oh, come on. Why do we even mess with computers? Yeah, maybe I'm misremembering that USB thing. Let's just get this party started. Let's throw the card in and see what Windows has to say about it. It thinks something is happening. PCMCIA card services. IBM Token Ring. No way. No way. Let's go. Oh, baby. New hardware found. Man, this looks like crap. The Windows 98 SE disk is still in. It's grabbing drivers. It's beeping. It's grabbing drivers off that. Man, is this just going to work? No way. Still just have the hourglass. Oh man, look at this. Pretty hopeful about this. The problem is I can't configure it, but maybe we might have ways around that. Computer froze again. Oh, we're back. We're back. Every few moments, the machine freezes up, and I'm almost positive what's happening is that stupid card is trying to get in the ring. And that's just, yeah, it froze again. I can't move them out. I'm trying to move them out, and then I'm back. Some of this token ring stuff is so weird. It tries to enter the ring and freezes the whole machine and then comes back. I had the same exact problem with a PCI card I put in a Windows 95 machine. I'm just assuming that's what's going on. Yeah, frozen again. My goodness. It is completely happy with this thing though. Here's an idea. What if we get this on the token ring network and we'll transfer the drivers I need to it over that? Wouldn't that be fun? It's time. We need a ring. This is a token ring now that is all powered up, and I know this one works. I've used it before. It's the only one I've ever gotten to work, actually. My suspicion, based on the freezing and stuff, based on approximately 2 hours of prior experience, I'm an expert here, is that this card we just slotted in, is continually trying to enter a ring. That's what kind of freezes the machine. It's taking a really high interrupt priority and kind of taking over Windows. So let's open our potentially new in box. I have no qualms with this, by the way. I'm just ripping it open. I think that's never been used. There's our dongle, and here is our little adapter to get to this big old chunky Type 1 IBM interface, and it's got the little plastic clip. Very cool. I'm unclear as to whether or not you're supposed to just plug this in while everything's running. Look how long this is. It's pretty nice. Let's see here. I'm gonna slap this in the PC card. Am I? There we go. It was upside down. Okay. Now what we're gonna do here is get this in our little adapter. And what we want to see and hear are some relays clicking as this thing attempts to enter. But we might have some problems. Here's an ISA token ring card. You can see it says 16.4, and on the edge there it also says 16/4. Kind of weird. The moment I plug this in, this thing like turned on some extra fans. It's blowing out a lot of extra heat. Interesting. Token ring initially came in two speeds, 4 and 16 megabit. And the first computer to enter the ring establishes the speed of the ring. And the problem is, I don't have the drivers, like I was alluding to, yet on this machine to tell it to force it to 4 or 16. So there's a possibility that I'm going to plug this in and it's just not going to work because it's in auto mode and it's trying to ask, for lack of a better word, it's trying to ask the ring what speed it should operate at. But it might be, hard-coded or smart enough to just choose a speed. So let's see. Let's try to get it plugged in right here. I get a green immediately, but I'm hearing no relay clicks or anything. And what we're going to want to see is activity on this indicator here. I do see some overall activity on the ring. I don't think it's working. Right here you can see the Mao thinks something is going on. We got a green here. I've never seen a green with no activity here or without it giving up. For good measure, I'm just going to restart the machine. Sometimes that is necessary to get the token ring peripheral. Oh, I heard some clicks as it left the ring. Got to get my install media out of here, actually. There we go. Ooh, I heard a click. Another oddity is it'll try to enter a ring and it can like stop Windows from booting. Seems like a bad driver design. Yeah, I restarted. Now Windows is all unhappy. Let's just do a normal boot and see what happens. This thing's a beeper. A click, it's trying to enter the ring, and it's holding up Windows 98 startup. This is the second set of token ring gear I've seen do this. That just seems bad. That's like, I feel like that's not what you want. Is that a Windows thing? Is that a token ring thing? Let me know. This thing doesn't seem to have a timeout, so I think it's just going to hang. Trying to boot. Yeah, it finally made it. What do I know? It's weird. I've never seen one that is green but no activity. Maybe it's in the ring. Maybe we're ringed up. By default, Windows 98 installed the TCP IP stack, and it actually bound the token ring PC card to that. I apologize for how crappy this looks. Hopefully we can fix that later in the video. So I'm going to get this thing on the same subnet as some other Windows 95 machines I set up with token ring. And Windows 98 also requires a restart when you change the IP. That thing clicked, took it out of the ring. So maybe it's fine. Let's get another machine on here. Starting to get this Windows 95 machine all hooked up and plugged into our Mao, and we'll form a ring between these two computers. And the hope is when I boot this one up, it'll enter, and we'll actually be able to ping back and forth. If not, what we'll do is we'll take them both off, then we'll just put this one on, because I think it's been configured hard-coded as 4 megabits, or at any rate, I can change the speed on this one. We'll get this one established on the ring first, then we'll try to get this one on and see what it does. And if none of that works, we'll get the drivers on this machine one way or the other, so that we can force the speed, and we'll go from there. At Collab Retro Enterprises, we only provide our employees with the most ergonomic of setups. Oh yeah, dude, disk boot failure. Good news this time though. That's because the compact flash card in this CF to IDE converter is literally not inserted, so I'll fix that. Let's try that again. That's better. So we can see it tried to get in the ring and didn't like it at all, I think. It was like a couple clicks, and then your token ring adapter is not working properly. Yeah, very nice. Okay. This thing's like repeatedly clicking. So like I was saying, I think we can pull the laptop off. This one's trying to connect now. And it succeeded. This is the behavior I'm used to, anyway, in my several hours of experience. Green light and then token activity. So what this means is this one is on the token ring network at 4 megabits, I think, which is fine. Now let's try to get the other one involved. This is the laptop. Yeah, that's way better. Oh, I think it worked. So this one established the ring at 4 megabits. This one is in auto mode, and look at that. 2 green lights and ring activity. They're talking to each other. That Windows 95 machine that established the 4 megabit ring is at IP address 192.168.9.4. Theoretically, on this laptop, we should be able to ping that. And we can. Yes. The PCMCIA token ring card that this one is connected to is working. We have a ring with 2 machines, including the laptop. Just for good measure, on the Windows 95 machine, let's see if we can ping the laptop at .9.8. You can tell I don't have the video drivers on this machine either. And it can. All right. Here we have a token ring network with a PCMCIA token ring adapter on this laptop. Now that we've got 2 healthy ring stations, I really want to get this IBM MAU working. This is an IBM 8228. I think it's a pretty typical MAU that business would have had back in the day. IBM made an absolute ton of these things. And it's passive. It doesn't take power. This one down here, I feel like I'm cheating. It just works. I've never had any trouble with this Thomas Conrad unit. I did battle with this thing in my first token ring video, and I hear it click as machines try to enter the ring, and it ultimately rejects them, and you can see the indicators on the back of the cards complaining that they couldn't enter the ring. A bunch of folks mentioned that, yeah, hey, I should connect this ring in and ring out. This is actually for daisy chaining these MAUs. I'd like to do that in a future video. That's not actually necessary, or it shouldn't be necessary for a MAU that is functioning properly. These originally would have shipped with something called a setup aid. It has a 9-volt battery inside, and it effectively lets you reset the ports, because sometimes they can kind of get stuck in a bad state and you have to apply a little bit of voltage in the right way. I tried to make my own. That didn't work. Remade that thing like 5 times. No luck. A patron of mine reached out and said, hey, I have a friend that's local to you, about an hour north of me, and he has an 8228 setup aid you can borrow. And here it is. We met up a couple weeks ago and had lunch together, and we're sitting there talking, getting to know each other, and he says, oh, I have a YouTube channel that I've had for a long time as well. And I said, well, what is it? And he goes, Doogie Labs. and I like, my jaw dropped. I couldn't believe it. I had absolutely devoured his Sun Microsystems server content. He has some Sunray videos on there. Definitely a really cool channel. Go check it out. So yeah, I was a little starstruck picking up this token ring stuff. He let me borrow a bunch of other interesting stuff in addition to the setup aid. Some PCI cards in here, these really nice IBM angled data connector cables I was showing you, and another functional 8228 token ring MAU. Oh, and he let me borrow some really interesting non-token ring gear as well that we're going to see in future videos. If you subscribe, maybe we'll get the libretto on the token ring. So a huge thanks to him for letting me borrow all this cool stuff. He's got a nice backlog of all sorts of interesting videos, so go check that out if you feel like it. Looks like we just have a screw, and it should be pretty straightforward. I think a 9-volt battery goes in here. I'm going to go hunt down a 9-volt battery to pop in here. And the behavior, you can see we've got like a little resistor here and the LED. I recreated this myself, so there might just be something wrong with the MAU, but I figured it's worth a shot on the OG tool here. Once we have a battery in here, we'll pop this in each port. We should see the light turn on and then fade out, and I think we'll hear some clicks and clacks as we reset the port, hopefully. Some folks left comments that these things would really suck down your battery as you were going through the data center. This is a brand new battery, but yeah, 9.47, so let's pop this in there. I made that one to the best of my ability, so I'm not really, well, I don't know, I guess I should always doubt my electrical prowess, but I'm kind of nervous that there's just really something wrong with this MAU. Let's give it a shot. I think the light's supposed to turn on and then fade out, and then you wait 4 seconds, I guess, and pull it out, and we should hear some clicks, maybe. Let's find out. It is like way harder than you would think to line this stuff up. Look at that. That's exactly what it was supposed to do. Mine did not do that. I'm gonna wait 4 seconds. I'll film each of these and I'll bring you back if we do hear some clacks. So that means this port's fine. It likes that one. Oh, and it clicked as I pulled it out. Okay. Same behavior. A click. This one didn't click actively when I was holding it, so that one might have actually just been reset. And it clicks when you pull it out. Man, this might be working. The diagram online might be wrong. I'm probably just didn't make it right. Just making my way along here. There is some procedure about double checking the ring in and ring out, but I don't think I need to. Went along every port 1 through 8. This is the only one that didn't click while the item was in there, and it clicked when I pulled it out. Every other one, the light would turn out, I'd hear a click, I'd wait my 4 seconds, pull it out, and click. So maybe we just reset these ports. Let's get the computers fired back up. We're going to start with the Windows 95 machine. It has indicators on the back of the card that lets me know if it thinks it's in the ring or not. As Windows 95 is booting right there, I heard a single click, and usually what would happen is you'd hear that click as it tries to go in, and the prior behavior was it would clack, so to speak, rejecting it out of the ring. And check this out. The indicator light on the back of the Token Ring PCI card is green. It is stable and on the ring. Laptop is hooked up again. I've got it plugged into port 2 over the RJ45 connector. Power this up. Remember I was telling you the first computer to enter the ring establishes the speed. Oh, my CMOS battery. Like I was saying, the first computer establishes the speed 4 or 16 megabit. And so some folks had commented that I didn't do that, but I troubleshooted that really heavily. And as you saw with the reset tool, it was clicking and resetting all those ports. So this MAU definitely needed a reset. Got the time and date set on that thing. Windows 98 is coming up. I'm going to be quiet and see if I can hear this thing click. Just heard the click. Kind of sounded different than that one. Ooh, rejected. It clicked again. I bet it's not in. Let's see. I'm going to try to ping the other machine. Oh, it's fine. It just clicked a little more than I expected. Oh my god. Holy crap. Yes. We have reset the 8228 MAU. 2 machines are on it. You needed the reset tool, and I either built the one online wrong or it is wrong, because this was a very quick operation. This took me all of 4 minutes to get this thing reset. I'm really happy that this thing isn't broken. Another huge thanks to Doogie Labs for letting me borrow this reset tool. It is a shame these are so hard to come by, because you can kind of get lucky and snag some of these 8228s for an okay deal occasionally. I think some of the eBay sellers are a little proud of them, but I definitely couldn't find one of these. Well, I had alluded to actually using the Token Ring network to get drivers onto this thing to make it not look like crap and run a little better. But I'm realizing I took the floppy drive out of this thing for another project. My grand scheme there was I was going to get floppies of the drivers and get them on here and then transfer them over the Token Ring network. But they're probably too big for floppy anyway. I mean, that's like a early 2000s machine. So I think I'm going to park that project for now. This video is getting pretty long. I've actually got some of these Gotek floppy drive emulators, so you hook it up like a normal floppy, but you can put disk images on a USB stick and use them on the old computers like this. I think that'd be desirable to get in there for obvious reasons, so we'll do that in a future video. But I think better yet would be getting some of these iOmega Zip 100 parallel port drives working and transfer stuff between the 2 machines or several machines that way. That's pretty convenient. I've been wanting an excuse to cover these zip drives anyway. They're pretty fascinating. They've got these big old discs like that. I'm sure you've seen them, but that'll be fun. So rest assured, in future Token Ring videos, we'll be getting this thing back into fighting shape from a driver perspective, hopefully using some zip disks. I don't know. And of course, as you shut the computers down, you can hear the click of them leaving the ring. Let's see if I can catch that on audio for the laptop. I'm absolutely thrilled that I was able to get this 8228 working with the setup aid. And better yet, we have a laptop on a Token Ring network with a PCMCIA card. This is one of an open-ended series of videos I'm doing covering a bunch of Token Ring concepts. I've got a lot of ideas for future videos, one of which I alluded to, the ring in and ring out ports of these things, and we'll daisy chain a bunch of MAUs and get a multi-MAU Token Ring network going. I've also got an IBM PS2 machine that we're going to remote initial program load, or otherwise known as net booting, over a Token Ring network. That's what that stack of Token Ring 64 Adapter A MCA cards I was showing you is going to be for. I've also got a massive RS6000 that I'd like to get on the Token Ring, and a million other ideas I'm going to come up with along the way. I've repaired enough of these machines to actually get them on a Token Ring network and built up enough of my own knowledge, lacking as it is, to be able to successfully run the network in the first place. This is all hard-coded to 4 megabit. I think I could now get 16 megabit running on these same MAUs. They should support that, so we'll do that in future videos as well. I hope you enjoyed following along. I absolutely love working on this Token Ring stuff, and all the videos are going to get a little more involved now. We're actually going to start using the network for real things rather than just trying to get the network working at all. So if you made it this far, thank you so much. If you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so. I hope I see you in the next video.